Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the fabulous Caleb Jones, and he's one of a handful of guys who have had an absolutely massive impact on my life. He covers business, living a location-independent lifestyle, sex, dating, relationships, and how to achieve all of those, and this is key, in a drama-free way that he calls the Alpha Male 2.0 lifestyle. I think the thing that I like best about him is that he dislikes drama, and he wants to be free and happy in the most efficient way possible with as little bullshit and as little drama as possible. I've mirrored a lot of that in my own life, which I think I got permission from you to do that. Super grateful to Caleb Jones for all of that. So Caleb, with that big intro, thank you for coming on the channel again.
No pressure, right?
No fucking pressure. Yeah,
No.
You're one of two people that have had the biggest impact on my life, so no pressure.
Really? That's
Stay,
cool.
Let's do it.
Cool. Who's the other one?
Chris from Good Looking Loser.
Oh, Chris. Yeah, I know Chris. I know Chris tangentially,
Yeah.
but I know I've spoken a few times. Cool. Good. I like Chris a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Let's jump straight into it, straight into the questions. But
Right.
first, I want to jerk your dick just a little bit more. Your Alpha Male 2.0 your Alpha Male 2.0 lifestyle emphasizes financial freedom and sexual freedom. And I think more than anything, like I said, you just gave me the permission to do it in a drama-free way. Before that, I was doing all this sort of like, red pill, alpha male kind of stuff. And I was very much what you call an alpha male 1.0. I was very invested in the outcome. I thought that in order to live a life of sexual and financial abundance, you had to control other people, particularly women. I thought you always had to say the right thing. I thought everything had to be perfect. And you sort of came along and said, no, there's another way. Like you can do this in this sort of drama-free way. So I guess my question to you is, in your own words, how did you go from that sort of mindset of the alpha male 1.0, who's essentially controlling other people and just, dominating? How did you go from that to this sort of more outcome independent, almost like a hippie namaste kind of person?
The original catalyst of that was that I observed other alpha male 1.0s and saw the results that they received in their lives, which is the same thing I do in my business life. I look at other people, I look at what they do, and then I look at the results they get, not what they say they get, not what they want, because that's what most people focus on. They talk about what they say they want or what they're supposed to have, the results they're actually getting. And all the alpha male 1.0s that I saw, other than the ones that were just pure players and never dated anyone, they just got laid. I mean, those guys were fine. Those guys, I guess, were okay. But all the other ones, because alpha male 1.0s get one-eyed just like beta males. They get into serious relationships just like beta males. They get needy just like beta males. I saw nonstop problems and drama. I saw ups and downs, and it was across the board. I didn't see a single alpha male 1.0. To this day, I haven't met one who doesn't have those ups and downs throughout in terms of drama, in terms of his relationships. And I said, well, you know what? This is back when I was a beta male. This is 15, 16, 17 years ago. And I said, well, but I have the same problem. So how is that useful? So is there a way I can structure these things where I can be a tough guy, a manly man, or not, if not a manly man, someone who is free, someone who does what he wants, someone who is not controlled by women. That's probably the best definition of alpha. Someone who's not controlled by women without these ups and downs, these swings. And I said, the only way I can pull that off, and I did this through experimentation for many years, is I'm just going to have to date women. I'm going to do literally whatever I want, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. Let's try that. And I saw a few guys way back, 16, 17 years ago in the pickup artist world do similar things like this. It's tangentially related to what I was doing. They didn't have a system for it though back then. They were just kind of, that's where the word MLTR came from, where you could date multiple women. And so I saw a few guys hint on this, and that gave me more hope. I said, okay, they're kind of doing it. What if I take this and really implement this and develop a system around it? And that's where that got started.
What key turning points were there in that journey? Was it just sort of like going through, did you go through like one particular big heartbreak? Was it just a general frustration of like, man, I'm never really getting that? Because for you, happiness and freedom are two things that you value most. Was it just like you weren't getting that? Were there any key big moments there?
Yeah, the key big moment was my divorce way back in 2007. And that wasn't an alpha male 1.0 thing. That was more of a beta male thing. When I got through that, and it wasn't a horrible divorce. It was a typical divorce. It wasn't like this awful. There's a lot of horror stories, but it wasn't anything like that. But it was, a shitty, divorces are shitty. And it wasn't about the divorce. When I sat down and evaluated this, when the divorce was all over, it wasn't about the divorce. It was about the marriage. I said, okay, for the past 9 years, I'm not allowed to have sex with anyone except one woman. And then she's allowed to say no, as she should be allowed to, no to me whenever she wants. So which means that one individual person outside of me now controls 100% of my sex life. That's the aspect of monogamy no one ever thinks about when they're excited about that new person who's so hot and she gives great blowjobs. And you're not thinking about, if you get monogamous with that one woman now doesn't just control sex with her, she controls your entire sex life. And on top of the financial stuff and the other things in terms of traditional long-term monogamous marriage. And I went, okay, that is not going to work, no matter what. It doesn't matter how good of a husband I am. It doesn't matter how alpha I am, because that's a common red pill thing. Monogamy works. You find the right girl, she's a virgin, and you be alpha. No, that's not going to fix that problem at all. So I said, I'm going to have to come up with a different system. And I didn't know what the system was back then, but I knew what it wasn't. And the system cannot be, and later over the first few months I tried this, it is not the standard relationship model where you have a man and a woman, they start having sex, they start seeing each other, they start liking each other. And what they do essentially is that the man says, okay, usually it's actually the man who does this first. Usually the woman does this first, now it's the man. The man says, let's get serious now, let's get exclusive, however he verbalizes it. And what he essentially does is he hands her a piece of paper, not literally, this is metaphorical. He hands her a piece of paper with a list of rules on it. You need to follow these rules now. And the woman says, oh, okay. And then she hands back the man a piece of paper with triple the amount of rules. You're going to follow these rules now. You're going to stop doing this, stop doing that, stop doing this. You better text me every day. You better do this. And now, and the guy goes, okay. And the woman gets excited. The guy's like, all right, fine, I'll follow these rules, whatever. If he's an alpha male 1.0, he says, okay, I'll follow these rules. He rolls his eyes. He's not going to follow them. He's going to cheat. The beta male says, okay, cool. And now they spend the next several months. The first few months are great, NRE, the honeymoon period. And then after that, it's nonstop, not nonstop, it's up and down drama forever until the relationship ends. And I knew that wasn't the model. So it was about knowing what it wasn't before knowing what it was, if that makes sense.
So you just kind of stumble your way into this in your own experience. I'm very lucky that I had you, that I had, Good Looking Loser and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Especially, I think you, because you taught, I bought one of your courses. I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically one of your books about how to do like multiple relationships and how to be polyamorous, essentially. I know you don't use that word, but it's that. I was very lucky that I had that. Did you just kind of go like, hey, let me just, start this thing being non-monogamous? How did that actually, did you have those conversations with the women? Did you say like, look, I'm going to be seeing other people? Like, did you just kind of fumble your way and track? Because you're someone that's very honest and upfront now.
Yeah.
Did you kind of how'd you get into that?
Let's see. So this is all 2007. I was divorced in February 2007. So I started this process around March of 2007. Most of it, yes, was trial and error. And I did a lot of things wrong. I did get some data, again, from the pickup artist world. There was a handful of guys, not many, but there were a handful of guys who were doing what was called MLTRs, which is a term I adopted, where they're dating multiple women. And there was some technique around what to do and what not to do. It wasn't really a system. So I took what they were doing and I implemented as much as I could. There wasn't very much. And the first time I tried this, I think I've talked about this once on one of my podcasts, but the first time I tried this was a woman. We started having sex, maybe I told her this before we had sex. I might have done it, which don't do this. This is very bad technique. But I said, look, here's the deal. I just got through a divorce. I was blatantly honest. I just went through a divorce. I don't want anything serious right now. I want to hang out with you. I want to have sex with you, but I'm also going to have sex with other women too. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. And my attitude was alpha male 2.0-ish. I said, look, if that's not what you want, I understand. And to my luck, I just got luck. I lucked out. She went, oh, okay. Now, that's very rare. And she was over 33 too, which is extremely rare. And the main reason she said, oh, okay, is she was kind of already playing with another guy. I didn't find this out until later, but that's fine. Yes, and so that's just how it got started. And I started doing that with several different women, experimenting with when to tell them, how to tell them, under what circumstances to tell them, then how to manage the relationship before and after I told them. And yes, it was throwing darts at a dartboard for a while. I had a spreadsheet, and I tracked what I did, what did and didn't work. I experimented over a period of about 2.5 years. And I had this pretty well mastered by about late 2009. So from early 2007 to late 2009, I had it mastered. I had a system. It was a little clumsy, but it worked. Just trial and error, and what little data I could get from the pickup artist world.
I want to piggyback off that a little bit. Basically, what you're talking about here is just like playing the numbers game, or really getting in there and experimenting a lot, which is something that I've done myself too. And I talk about this all the time. you said in an email to me that a lot of guys don't take action. I think a lot of guys are sort of waiting for someone else to come and tell them exactly what to do. They're scared to dip their toes in the water or throw themselves in there like you. Have you always been that way? Where you're like, I want to just get in there and take a bunch of action? Did someone give you permission? In other words, I guess I'm asking the question of, if there's a guy out there who's like, I really struggle to take that action, I'm scared to just fuck things up, like you kind of just admitted that you did, what would you say to that guy?
What is the pain of not acting?
Yeah.
So to answer your first question, I've never had a problem with not acting. Never had that problem. But we talk a lot about setting goals, and I talk about this too: mission, goals, visualization, reviewing your goals, affirmations, and those are all good and they help. They've helped me. But that's positive motivation. Negative motivation often works better. So what I tell people is to use both. So I talk about how you sit down and think about, what if I don't act? It's 5 years from now. I haven't made any changes in my life. My life still sucks. Well, how do you feel now? Everything is just as bad, except now you're 5 years older. What about 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? So the pain of not acting is really terrifying to me. So that's why I just don't not act. It's rare that I don't act. It's a fear-based thing, but it's a fear of it's a fear of inaction. One of my mentors is a guy named Mito Quabain, and he has a statement, and he says, at the end of life, you'll have one of two pains. In life, you'll have one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You're going to have one of those two pains. You're going to have to pick one. And they both suck, and they're not fun, but you're going to have to pick one. You either pick discipline, which means you take action when you don't want to, you don't feel like it. You have to learn how to do that. Or you don't do that, and you're going to be regretful. And the older you get, the more regretful you'll be, and that's most men. And again, it's also an age thing. It's easier for younger guys to not take action because, well, I'm only 28. Yeah. Okay. But bro, when you're 40, I know a lot of guys in their 40s, early 40s, who didn't take action in their 20s and 30s, and talk about misery. It sucks. And men in their 30s too.
Yeah. The two types of pain there that you talk about, discipline versus regret. The thing is, you can learn to love discipline. You can almost get this weird, I don't know if it's masochistic, if that's the right word, but you can almost get this pleasure out of looking at your to-do list or your calendar for the day and then just adding a little bit more onto that and going, I'm going to fucking beat my... And it's not in a punishment way, but you get what I mean? Where you're just like, I'm going to fucking go hard today. I'm going to pretend this is my last day on earth. I am going to go to the point where my knuckles are almost bloody, and don't do that in a suffering way. Like, you enjoy that. That's kind of the point. You can learn to love discipline. I don't know if it's possible for any human being to love regret. Like, you can self-medicate it away. You can drink a lot of alcohol. You can watch a lot of porn. You can lie to yourself and convince yourself, like, I love being plugged into the matrix. This is beautiful. I love doing what society tells me. This is great. You can pretend, but I don't think you're ever actually enjoying the process. And maybe some people would say, are you really enjoying discipline? Yeah. It's fucking fun achieving a lot. It's really fucking fun. It's really nice to look at your to-do list and look at all the things you've crossed off and go, man, I kicked ass today. It's really good to look at the money going up in your bank account. It's really nice to look at your calendar and say, wow, I had sex with 5 women this week and they're all attractive and they all like me and they're all wanting to see me again. Like, discipline fucking wins in terms of regret. One of my favorite books is a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it was by this woman, this nurse who worked in like palliative care. So where people are literally dying. And she sort of mapped out, she had thousands of patients. She mapped out the 5 biggest regrets. The biggest one was, I regret not living a life that was true to myself. In other words, I regret not actually going for my fucking goals. So I really love that. Using that pain of what will happen if you don't do this. And I've said this a million times, you'll end up on your fucking deathbed going, like, that was it. That was my one shot at life, and I dicked about and did what society told me. So
that's a good point, because you don't understand the love of discipline when you haven't done it yet.
Correct.
So I was just talking to 2 or 3 guys a few weeks ago. I was mentioning how it is now a semi-regular occurrence for me when I go on my personal Instagram, which I don't do personal social media very often, but when I go on my personal Instagram and I scroll down the stories, or I look at I look at the stories at the top, and it's 5 super, super, super attractive women in a row, and I've had sex with all 5 of them. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I'm not a big ego guy. I'm like, look, all the girls I fuck. But that's pretty. But if you've never experienced that, it's hard to visualize how good that feels. Or if you've never experienced your bank account growing through your own business, It's hard to visualize that. So there's a hump you've got to get over. But I agree 100% what you're saying. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. You'll never learn to love regret. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can self-medicate it, but I don't think you'll ever be glad that you didn't live the life you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, there are some aspects in your woman life and your business life that you will have to do with your discipline that you won't like. So there are some aspects, not really anymore, but over the original 10 years I was building up my woman life, there were some aspects of things I had to do that I didn't love. Like, I don't love going on first dates. A lot of guys do. I don't. I consider that work. Now, I don't hate it, but I had to use discipline to get over that because I wanted the result of having multiple attractive women all seeing me at the same time.
Sure.
Right.
But how do you dissociate that from the initial bit? Like, what I'm trying to say here is you have that little hump at the start. It's like I would say the same thing. I don't like going to the gym, but then yet every single time I'm in the gym, I'm like, man, I love the gym. And so how do you dissociate? It's sort of more that little bit at the start. Like you say, I don't like first dates, but I'm sure when you're on the first date and it's going well and you're going, man, I'm about to have sex with it. I'm sure you like that bit. So it's taking that short-term initial upfront, I don't know if you'd call it a sacrifice, but like a price that you have to pay.
The hump.
We call that discipline. Yeah. To get the juicy bit, like cracking that coconut open to get the juice in the bit inside. And I think a lot of people, because they don't get that juice inside immediately, like we definitely live in a time where people are like, I took one swing at the coconut and it didn't change my life. And so, it's waiting.
Yeah.
You reckon?
In terms of society, it's the worst I've ever seen it with that aspect. I tried that once, it didn't work. Bro, nothing works the first time you try.
Do you know how many times I've had this conversation? Yeah, I get YouTube comments from someone saying, dude, I tried what you said and I hit on a woman and she said she had a boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, and then what happened with the next 100 women you hit on? They're like, but I hit on one. Like, yeah, one woman's probably going to have a boyfriend. Like,
yeah, it's the worst I've ever seen it. Not just woman stuff, business stuff, everything. It's the worst I've ever seen it. And it's going to get worse. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is social media. Speaking of business, you talk as much about, I'd say at this point, you talk maybe even more than business. I think just because you've said so much about women and dating and relationships and you're sort of segueing into the business side of things, but you cover business or financial freedom and sexual freedom. How do those two sort of feed into each other? How do they help each other? And why is it important to have both? Like, why don't you just cover one or the other?
Well, I can tell you for me, I'll start with for me and then I'll expand it to possibly other guys because not everybody is me and not everybody is you. So in terms of me, sexual freedom allows me and will allow you to have sex. I always throw this in there. Consensual sex with consenting adults. Mutually consensual.
Yeah, I fucking hate having to give that disclaimer too sometimes.
Oh my God. Because then there's always someone, including women, who go, what do you mean whenever you want with whoever you want?
Yeah, I know.
All right. God damn it. Fine. Mutually consenting sex with legal adults whenever you want, with whomever you want, as much as you want. You can't do that with monogamy. You can't do that with black pill or MGTOW. You can't do that. If you're poor and you can only have sex with hookers, you can't even do that with hookers. So Alpha Male 2.0 is an avenue for this. So that's what sexual freedom means. Then business success requires focus. And if you're a man, unless you're an unusual low testosterone man or something with an unusually low sex drive, one of the things you're going to be thinking about all day is pussy and sex. That's because you're a guy. Now, if you're not getting laid or you're only getting laid with some overweight, angry girlfriend or wife, you're going to be thinking about that all the time. You just talked about social media. You're going to be on Instagram, God forbid OnlyFans, Pornhub. You're going to be on these things all the time because you're not getting it in real life. Well, that distracts from your work, so now damages your work, as well as your fitness and anything else that's important to you. So I have sex about 3 times a week. That's kind of my standard. So that's what makes me happy. And if I do that, I'm not thinking about sex all the time. I can focus on my work and accomplish great things with my work. Whereas a lot of guys, if you're thinking about sex all the time, how are you going to focus on your work when you got to jerk off several times a day, or you're addicted to porn or OnlyFans or all these other things? So that's how they both boost each other. And then obviously, I don't like bringing this up, but it's true. If you make a lot more money, your woman life does become easier. Logistics kind of smooth out because you have that money aspect. So they both build on each other, and that's how you want it to do.
Yeah, and you can throw more money at self-improvement and all that sort of stuff for sure.
Right, right. Snowballs. So they both build on each other, which is kind of the point. I mentioned in my book, there are men out there who get laid a lot, including with attractive women, but they have no money or they have constant financial problems.
That used to be me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of guys like this. A lot of guys in my audience in this category. Yeah, sure. Young guys, or guys who are like my age who have companies and stuff, but they're always getting sued and they're having cash flow problems and debt problems, but they're getting laid a lot. So, and then you have the inverse. You've got I work with a lot of these guys in my consulting practice and my coaching too, where, high income beta males who make a lot of money, they do really well financially, but they're pussies. They don't get laid at all. Or if they meet a girl, they get one-itis and she runs his ass. I recently spoke with, last year, a guy, I can't say his name, but he's reasonably famous. If I said his name, a lot of people in your audience would know who this person is. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Good-looking guy in his 40s, hundreds of millions of dollars, more or less famous. And he was a wreck in his person. I see this all the time. There was some girl he met in Hawaii and he has one-itis and I couldn't think about her and I don't know what to do and how do I get this one girl? And you would think, well, rich guys never have that problem. Yeah, they fucking do if they don't have these skill sets. So yeah, so you don't want to be either one of those guys in mind. You want both. And it's not that hard.
Yeah, Elon Musk probably the best example that comes to mind of that. I just want to give him a hug when it comes to women. I'm like, bro, come on. Like, why are you going back to the same lady who divorced you several times? Like, have we not had enough?
Beyond belief. And he is not unusual. People might think well, he's weird. No, he's not weird. He's the norm. I don't know if he's the norm, but close to it. High income beta males. Yeah. They're a mess in their relationship life. They're a mess. No, you don't want that. You want the money and sex. You want both.
Okay, so you've established, or you're saying, and I completely agree, obviously, that money and sex are both super, I don't know what you want to call it, super important, super helpful to guys. But how do you marry that? Foundational. How do you marry that with something else that you talk a lot about, outcome independence? Like, and I obviously talk a lot about outcome independence too. How do you be outcome independent while on the other hand caring deeply about these goals? Like, doesn't goal setting sort of contradict, or doesn't it mean that you inherently care about your outcomes? How do you balance those two things?
Sure. Yeah. So my definition of outcome independence means you do not care about the outcome of any one given scenario.
Yeah.
You can still care about the big picture. So for example, I'll do a woman objective and a business objective. Woman objective, you want 3 really hot girls on rotation. This is what I wanted way back. I want 3 girls who are all 8s or higher to me, all dating me, all having sex at the same time. They all know I'm dating other women, and they don't give me shit about it. That was my objective. And I hit that within 2 years, a year and a half. So great. Let's say that's your goal. So you're outcome dependent, quote unquote, on that goal, on the macro, on the big picture. You've got a first date scheduled tomorrow with a hot girl, with a cute girl you think is cute. Outcome independence means you care about the macro, the goal, but you don't need her. So you don't give a shit how that date ends up, because you don't need any one woman to accomplish the objective of 3 women on rotation by definition. So you tell yourself, I don't need this one person. So therefore, outcome independence means on that date, you're nice and polite, but you don't care what the results are. So if she says, fuck you, you're an asshole, and throws a drink in your face and walks out, you don't care. If she goes, oh my God, you're the most amazing man on earth, let's go back to my apartment right now, have sex, you still don't care. You're cool either way, because you don't need any one person to hit your financial objectives. Same thing in business. I have very strong business goals, financial macro goals. I have very specific numbers. I care a lot about those goals, but I don't need any one customer, any one client, any one team member, any one joint venture, anyone, anything to hit that objective. I'm going to need a portfolio of these people. So on any one given, let's say, sales call or whatever, I don't care what the outcome is. You're nice and polite. You're not a dick about it. I have to throw that in there because some guys say, oh, I don't care. And then they're total dicks on the first date. You're nice and polite. And it's clear to her or the person you're talking to in a business scenario that you don't need the money. You don't need her. And as I've talked about, outcome independence, when you're like that, is the number one most attractive non-physical quality men have to women. Number one. There's nothing else non-physical that will work this. She'll be attracted to you and she won't even know why. And the more pretty she is, the hotter she is, the more men are telling her she's gorgeous. If she's one of these Instagram chicks, it works even better because she's never met a man like this before. And it works the same way in business, especially if you're dealing with CEOs and, high-powered, savvy business people. If you need the business, if you come across like you need it, they can feel that hunger and they don't want to work with you. Dan Kennedy, one of my business mentors from a long time ago, he would say, if you need heart surgery, you're dying. You need heart surgery. Do you want the heart surgeon who can take you tomorrow? I got plenty of room. I schedule to come on in tomorrow. Or do you want the heart surgeon who is so busy? Hey man, I booked out for 3 months. I can take you in 3 months. You want, assuming you're not in a rush for it to die, you want that guy. So it works the same way. So you're outcome dependent, quote unquote, on the macro. You're outcome independent on everything else.
The way I would phrase it is like so unbelievably similar to what you said, but I would say fall in love with the process or fall in love with the mission, fall in love with the day-to-day stuff rather than saying, I need this goal to be happy. Obviously, we have goals, we're trying to achieve them and shit like that. But when you become so obsessed with the goal and not the process, then yeah, like you're saying, you'll go on a date with a girl, she just say, hey, sorry, I'm not feeling it. And you'll have a mental breakdown because you go, but she was supposed to be the one that got me the goal. I need this. But if you can fall in love with the process and say, I'm going to enjoy going on dates, I'm going to find ways to enjoy hitting on women, I'm going to find ways to actually fall in love with this mission that I'm on. And the mission comes first more than any one person that I happen to meet along the way. And so then when you do meet that person who says no, or I'm not interested or whatever, you go, I don't care. I'm still on this mission. Like I continue the mission. I phrase it like this. Your mission or your goals or your purpose is like a train that is just going along these train tracks and it's going to get to its destination no matter what. And you don't give a fuck who gets on or off that train. People will come on, they'll stay for a little bit, they'll jump off. Well, you don't care, the train is going. But I see a lot of guys, like you said, that are very dependent on the outcome and each individual person that they meet. Right. And they go, oh my God, this passenger got off on this platform and this person didn't stay for very long. Oh my God, how do I make girls stay for longer? And it's like, aren't you on this mission though? Like, doesn't the mission come first? So,
right. One of the statements I have in my books is that my mission is more important than any one woman, including up to and including my own wife. And she knows this. Doesn't mean I don't love my wife, love her to death, but my mission is number one. Nothing comes before this. Right.
Yep. I did a video talking about exactly the same concept. I said, your mission is up here. And maybe like your friends are number two. And then women, or if you're a woman listening, men or whatever it is, they come underneath that. So your mission has to be first. Like you put yourself first. It's that classic saying, put on your own oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. And yet I see so many people messing that up.
Yeah. And that is classic when we talk about beta males. I mean, the word now is simp, but if you talk about classic beta males, that's the beta male. The beta male is he puts other human beings, usually a woman, but sometimes his mom, sometimes his boss, above his mission. And so now he's a slave. And he's a slave and he's constantly scared. He's terrified. My wife might break up with me. My girlfriend might dump me. Whatever. It lives in a constant state of fear because he's placed his mission below other people. And you can't do that. You'll never be happy that way. It's not possible.
I think, okay, the way I would phrase it is his mission is still first. He's just got it convoluted what that mission actually entails. So for a lot of guys, their mission is like, I want to have an amazing relationship and be a great father and have kids and, you know, she's my honey boo boo and we love each other forever and we stay together. And then the way he goes about that is, so therefore I should cut my balls off and do everything she wants because that'll make her happy. So I think it's like, he understands his mission.
But that's not even a mission. That's not a mission. He thinks it's a mission. That's not a mission. I want to get married, have kids, and be a great husband, and have a wonderful wife. That's not a mission. It's not. It's a goal, and it's a structure. It's also structure doesn't work anymore in the Western world, but it's not even a mission. So on top of that, so I agree, and it's not really a mission. You can't have mission focused on other individuals. It doesn't work. Yeah. And that's a goal. Once you hit that goal, then what?
I've had that conversation so many times.
Right.
A way to think about missions for anyone listening is think about a set of principles of like who you want to be or how you want to act, something that won't change when external things do change. So
correct.
Like, you have your mission, for instance, I want to learn everything I possibly can learn before I die. That's a great mission. That will never change. I want to be the best human being that I could ever do and ever be and affect as many people in a positive way as I ever could. Like that mission will never fucking end. It's almost like you want an overarching mission that's like an infinite mission rather than like you're saying a goal. Because getting married and having kids, like you could do that in 2 years from now. I advocate for waiting longer. I know you do, but that's
you could do it next month. I've seen guys do it. I've seen guys, meet a girl on a first date and say, oh my God. Yeah, exactly. So that's not a mission. A mission cannot be something you accomplish. Yeah. Because that's the danger of, and this is a little off topic, but that's the danger of being successful. There are a lot of men, and you see these guys on YouTube all the time, and I went through this myself. These guys who make a lot of money, and when they're young, like in their late 20s, they're making millions of dollars, and they go, okay, I'm done. I'm going to retire now. And they retire, and they're miserable, and they don't know, and they fuck up their lives. They get addicted to drugs, or they gain weight, and then they got to go back to work. because they didn't have a mission. They had a goal. What happens if you hit your goal? Same thing with guys in the pickup artist world, the red pill world, who get really successful women. I've profiled a lot of these guys. Not going to mention names, but I could. Many of them, where they spend their 20s, early 30s banging all these girls. They've had sex with hundreds of women now. And then they hit 35. They go, well, now what? They don't know what to do. And they just completely implode and they just fuck up their lives because they never had a mission. They just had a goal. I want to get laid. That's a goal. That's a subset of a mission. That's not a mission.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
What you're talking about there is kind of, or we can talk about this. It's kind of similar to like the Disney fairy tale bullshit of like the one and like soulmates and all of that.
Yeah.
You obviously advocate for non-monogamy. I advocate for people doing whatever they want, but if I push them gently and like, you don't have to be monogamous, that's kind of,
you're nicer than I am.
Towards. I know, you just come out and straight up say monogamy doesn't fucking work. Fuck you, you're wrong.
Long-term monogamy. Long-term monogamy doesn't work.
Yes.
Monogamy can work for a while.
I like the way you talk about it because you add the caveat that I think most people don't. Most people go, well, my grandparents, first of all, that's a different time. So, but they'll say like, I know.
And you don't know who grandpa was fucking either. You haven't sat down and talked to grandpa
exactly
heart to heart, because I have.
Yeah. Non-monogamy requires you not to cheat, you not to be miserable and unhappy and just putting up with each other for the kids or whatever. And
right. And she hasn't cheated. She hasn't. Yeah. Well, she hasn't. Neither one of you have been sexual with anyone else the entire time, and that includes no temporary separations and things like that. What do I say? It's a good question. So that, and you're still together.
Yep.
So 25 years you're still together, and you're not miserable being together, and you're not putting up with what you just said, the good of the kids, or I'm old now, I guess I got to stick with this idiot. That's, if you have all three of those things in place, then long-term monogamy has succeeded. And you're talking about, in the Western world, you're talking the numbers are somewhere around 5-6% of people who can pull that off, and often it's attributed to luck and your personality type, not a technique that you utilize, not like you screen. Grandpa or your dad or it won't be your dad. It'll be some guy Everyone brings this up. Well, I know a guy who, for 19 years, he's still married. Okay, he didn't sit down and buy a book on how to screen for a wife. He just fell in love with a woman. And I've talked about this, how the personality profiles of people who stay that 5-6% are generally boring people who marry other boring people. And if you're interested in this content at all, you're probably not a boring person. And you probably don't like boring women. I don't like boring women. I'm the opposite of a boring person. So there you go. So I mean, we could do a whole thing on that. But yes, I don't know if I went off topic there for you, but yes.
You relatively answered it.
Okay.
I guess further, I was going to say, like, how would you snap a guy out of that sort of Disney fairy tale notion? What I do is I just sort of let them make their own stumbles and get into it and then suggest gently, hey, you can date multiple people, but do you have something you say, or do you just kind of give up on those people? Like,
it depends on where they are. So it depends on where they are.
Yeah.
If they are engaged to be married to the girl who is perfect and not like the rest, there's nothing you can do or say. I get emails all the time. I know you get these emails too. Hey, my friend is getting married, or he's moving in with this girl. She runs his life. And how do I get him? What if I gave him your book? There's nothing you can do. He's fucked. You're gonna have to wait until when she dumps him or divorces him or fucks his brother and he's depressed. Then you can talk to him about this. Now, if he doesn't have that, if he's single, then he has this notion, then you've got a shot. Then you can try to explain these things to him. Your odds are still pretty low because societal programming is very difficult to overcome, but you have a shot at it. So it depends on where he is. If he just got out of a divorce, he's wide open, of course. So it depends on where he is in life and what he's doing in terms of his own life right now.
Are the majority of the guys that come to you, or a big chunk, are they like post-divorce?
No. The majority are guys who are 25 to 45 is kind of the age range for the guys who come to me, and they generally skew a little lower, like 30s, mid-30s. Mm-hmm. There's a few guys. There's plenty of guys in my audience who are post-divorce. Yes, plenty, but that's not the majority. No.
While we're talking ages, I'm 36. You're a bit older than me. How has dating, and I guess business as well, but I'm more interested in dating. How's dating changed, like as you've gotten older?
For me, I don't need as many women. So it's not about an excitement and ego thing. It's more about a necessity thing. So when I was your age, matter of fact, I was your age when I started in this world. I was 36. When I was your age, I recently divorced after a 9-year monogamous marriage. I didn't cheat during the 9 years, so I was truly monogamous. I I wanted to sow my oats and live all the fantasies I hadn't lived. And so the last 16 years, I've lived every sexual fantasy I've ever had. I've lived beyond those fantasies. I've talked about how if I were to go back in time to my 30-year-old self and show him pictures and videos of things I've done over the past 16 years, he wouldn't believe me. He'd like, oh, come on, shut up. So it's not only my fantasies, it's far beyond my wildest fantasies, including just in the last few years. So I've been there and done that. So I don't need to do that anymore. And I've written about how when people talk about sowing your oats and getting things out of your system, you'll never get sexual variety out of your system because you're a man and you're a human being. You're always going to want to have sex with other women, even if you marry the perfect 10 person for you. Maybe not right at that moment when you marry her, but eventually you're going to want to hook up with someone else. That's hardwired in your biology. You're never going to get that out of your system. But what you can get out of your system is all the crazy stuff, all the fantasies. I've done all those things. I don't need to do them again. Now, if they're offered to me and they land in my lap, I'll do them again. But I don't need to pursue them because I've already done them multiple times with multiple women. So I don't need to do those things anymore. So now I've just streamlined everything. I have a set of, and I'm an international guy, so I have a set of FBs in Dubai, Paraguay, and the United States. And that's it. I'm good. I don't need any more. I have my wife. So she's wonderful. And that's it. And so my whole life revolves around my mission and my work. And I plug women in where I can, where it makes sense. Instead of way back in, let's say, 2009, my priority was women. And I would prioritize women and I'd plug my work in wherever I could. That's why in 2009, I didn't make a lot of money. So it's just flipped. So it's not just age, but it's also experience and getting things done, checking off those boxes, those lists.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I don't know how much of that is age because I've gone through that. You know, you say you started when you were my current age. I'm definitely at the point that you're talking about right now where it's like I would rather have one or two friends with benefits plus my girlfriend and have sex maybe 2 or 3 times a week and just focus on business. So I wonder if it is just what you're talking about. You get all that like sexual variety, sexual craziness, you know, all the bucket list and the crazy BDSM and threesomes and weird stuff that you want to have.
Right.
You get that out of the way. And it's almost like I'm in the same mindset as you. I love that stuff and it's really fun. But it's almost like, and people are going to take this the wrong way as if we're both like old boomers and we've given up. It's almost like you can't be bothered doing it anymore because you're like, I just want to have good sex. It doesn't need to be this crazy thing to stroke my own ego or to see what's possible. I've seen that shit's possible and I may go back there again. And I do from time to time. But let me just almost... And this might sound clinical, but at least for me, it's like I want to just handle my sex life and have a bit of fun like every week and almost have it like it's this thing that's going on in the background so I can focus on the thing that I care about most right now. And every time I try and have this conversation with people who don't get it, they have the same, or they say the same sort of things that I used to say when I talked about my mentors, which is like, why would you ever give up on crazy sex? I used to say that about you, Caleb Jones. I used to say it about Good Looking Loser. I was like, why would you ever stop having like wild sex 7 times a week? Do you know how much I would kill to be in your position? You're letting me down. You're disappointing me. And it's like, because I don't need it anymore.
I've talked about, I have not implemented this, but I've talked about having something, it's a category, a new category I've invented that I haven't done yet, called a super FB, where I have my wife, and instead of having a portfolio of FBs in multiple countries, I have one FB, just one. And maybe she even follows me around as I travel if my wife doesn't want to go with me. And I see her and my wife, and that's it. Because that'd be great for my time management and building my companies. And I say, whenever I say this publicly. Now, by the way, most of you are not going to want to do this. Most of you think that's insane. Don't do this. This is what I want at my age with the last 16 years of my experience living all these fantasies. This is for me. And I will still get what you just said, guys who say, that's crazy. Why would you possibly just have 2 women? That's why are you going backwards? Because they haven't. Right. You're exactly right about that. And but you made a point. You asked about how it's different as I'm older. Because you're right. What I just discussed is a function of experience, not age. The answer is there's no difference. But I do all the anti-aging stuff. I teach some of this stuff. So TRT and exercise and water intake and skin regimens, and I do all these things. I don't feel any different at age. I'm 51, so I don't feel any different at age 51 than I did when I was 20. I don't feel any different. The only difference, I was talking to someone else. The only difference I feel physiologically now is when I sneeze harder. That's it. I don't know. And I looked up. I Googled why this is. But I used to, when I was 23, if I sneeze, I go, Choo. And I remember actually people saying, that's the quietest sneeze ever. And that was it. Today, when I sneeze, I go, Achoo. I picture my dad, because my dad used to do this. And it's because the shape of your nose changes as you age. That's it. But that's it. So sexually, motivation, day-to-day energy, it's either as good or better. So I don't notice a difference in terms of sexual desire, all that stuff. It's all the same. But again, I'm on TRT. I have the testosterone of an 18-year-old. So you have to throw that in there. So there's no difference to me mentally or physiologically in terms of my woman life because I'm older. It's because of where I am now and where I used to be and what I've experienced the past 16 years.
Yeah, I think guys, and I don't know about you, but I find it's mostly guys in their 20s, especially when they get to their late 20s, that they have basically this freak out of like, man, when I'm 40, hell, some of them even say when I'm 30, but when I'm 40 or 50, I'm going to be too old and I won't have a sex drive and I'll be lazy and I won't want to go to the gym and all of this and my body will hurt and everything.
Well, you know what? Real quick, you know what? They're right. They are right. They're probably right. They're probably not going to do the things necessary. Yes.
Yeah.
And statistically, if you look at the younger generations, and I hate to be the old man say young people today, but this is statistical and factual and objective. They are like that. By the time he's 40, he's going to be a big pile of shit. He's not going to work out. He's not going to focus on his diet. He's not going to focus on his hormones. He's not going to get enough sleep. He's going to be jerking off the porn all day. He's going to be bitching about politics on the internet. He might be right. Now, he doesn't have to be. He can decide. And there's a percentage of them, guys in our audiences, who decide to not be that way. But you have to make a conscious decision. When I talk about like getting enough sleep, the most important thing for your physiology, probably, and there's studies to back this up, is sleep. You need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. This is just an example. 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, every night on average, period. The only way you can do that in the modern era is to make it a priority. You can't just say, yeah, I should do that, because then you won't. You won't sleep. People hate going to sleep. And they have trouble sleeping and they got to get up early, and you have to make it a priority. So to be the guy who's 23, says, by the time I'm 40, I won't be able to have sex because my dick won't work and I'll be a fat pile of shit. And the only way to not be that person is to decide and make it a priority to actually do it.
Yeah. It's that sort of victim mentality that people have, and they don't realize they're doing it, but they're making themselves, they're taking away their own agency, and they're saying, man, this thing will happen to me. It's like, why the fuck would it ever happen to you? Something that my girlfriend says, she said multiple times, she will see like an old person or an old couple, like kind of bent over with a walking frame, and she'll go, I don't ever want us to be like that. And I'll be like, why would we be like that? And then I've gotten her to actually map out what we would have to do to be in that position. And she goes, well, we wouldn't do any of that shit. Like that would require us to stop going to the gym, to stop doing this, to stop caring about our bodies, like this whole list of things. And I've gotten her to realize, and she absolutely realizes it at this point, like we have full fucking agency over what happens to us. Yeah, you might get cancer, you might get this, but if you get cancer, go and do a bunch of research into whatever the fucking marijuana oil is, the stem cells, blah, blah, blah. Like find a solution. I think a lot of people are so busy looking at the problem, they're not hunting for a solution.
In the modern era, that's accurate. In the modern era, now many decades ago, this was not true, but today in the modern era, that person who is in their 60s or 50s or whatever, maybe not 80s or 90s, but 50s, 60s, maybe even early 70s, who's walking hunched over, that person made a decision. That person decided to do that. Now, back in 1950,
made a series of decisions. Like
correct.
Tens of thousands of decisions.
A series of decisions. Yes, a series of big decisions. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm too busy, or I want to watch TV, or that person made. That is the result of a conscious choice. Now, 40 years ago, you could argue old people didn't have the knowledge. Accurate. But today in the 2020s, you see someone hunched over, you see someone extremely fat, that person's made a series of decisions. You don't have to be that way. Now, you don't have to have a six-pack abs. I certainly fucking don't. But you've made some decisions. So, correct. This is all up to you. So, the man you're going to be when you're 40, 50 is 100. What you just said, you have 100% agency over this, is 100% up to you. And so, I hit this conversation when I talk to guys about having kids later in life. So, what I advise most men to do is have kids as late in your life as you possibly can, ideally after you've accomplished most of your big financial objectives. If I were to go back in time and make that change, one of the biggest changes I'd make. And then they get the classic excuse, well, I don't want to be an old man when my son is in high school and I won't be able to play catch in the yard. And I'll say, all right, go watch some 1990s movies with Sean Connery where he was in his early 70s. Do you think that guy would have any problem whatsoever playing with his teenage sons in the yard or even wrestling with his sons? None, because he made a series of decisions. So why don't you decide to be an older man who is physically fit? I mean, you look at guys like Stallone and Schwarzenegger now in their 70s. They're insane. You can decide, now you don't have to be at that level, but you can decide to be physically fit and active in your 50s, 60s, 70s. Once you hit 80, I agree that there's not so much you can do. But prior to 80, I've got guys in their 70s who are killing it, and because they made decisions. So it's not about I'm stuck with this. It's not true. Yeah.
Let's segue to a slightly different topic. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about your philosophies and the things that you teach?
You want to talk about non-monogamy specifically? Because I talk a lot about.
Let's go there. Because I think that's probably going to be the most contentious of the things that you.
Sure. Okay. What they generally do is they take the extreme opposite 1% exception to the rule example. So if you say you should have a non-monogamous, like I do, I have a non-monogamous marriage. My wife, I have sex with other women every week. My wife does not have sex with other men, but she is allowed to. And as soon as you say, but she is allowed to, you'll go, oh. And so what you'll see is guys who say, okay, great. So you're going to be married and your wife's going to be out fucking 12 different guys with 12 different cocks in her mouth. And then you're going to go home and kiss her on the lips after she. Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. So if you have to jump to the extreme hypothetical fantasy scenario in order to prove a point, it means you don't have one. So I see that a lot. Oh, great. Your wife's going to go fuck some guys, fuck a bunch of guys in Africa and get AIDS and give you AIDS. Okay. So is that likely to occur? No. And if you have to pull something out like that is that crazy, well, what does that say about what you're saying? Give me a logical, rational point. Or maybe it's not as crazy. You're something like, oh, great. All right. You come home after a hard day's work and you walk in, your wife's on the floor having sex with another guy because she's allowed to do it. Oh, right, Caleb. You don't need to do that. And that doesn't happen either. So that's one of the big things I get is they take the extreme opposite examples and throw them as if they're a rational point. All these things that I've literally, okay, you're allowed to, you're dating two different women and they go get pregnant by other men. And again, statistical probability. I mean, if you have an OLTR, if you're dating, if you have a girlfriend or wife, she gets pregnant from some other guy. I have literally never heard this in my entire audience, thousands of men. Never heard of a guy with an OLTR so that comes up a lot. And then it's just the usual excuses, all of which I've resolved. Like, well, what about, being with someone in your old age? Things like that.
Yeah,
all these
the myth of the lonely old man. Yeah.
Right. Right. The odds, well, here's the deal. If you want to be with someone in your old age, then marry someone in your old age. So why don't you wait till you're 65 and then get married? Then you might have a shot of making it work because you'll be dead by whatever. Fine, that's fine. But the real divorce rate in the United States / Western world is beyond, we don't know what it is, but it's well beyond 76%. So the odds are that woman's not going to be with you anyway. You can see all these old guys have been divorced. And also, well, I don't want to get off topic, but things like that. So there isn't just one or two big misconceptions. It's a list of about 10 or 15 standard objections that I've responded to for you.
They sound fear-based to me. Like that sounds more like the fear of that person like bubbling up rather than anything that's about you. It's almost like they're not even talking to you anymore. They're talking to their own fears or from their own fears.
No, that's accurate. Fears or societal programming. What will my mom think? A lot of that stuff, especially from guys from Asia. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite rebuttal or my favorite response to that is something that Alex Hormozy said, who's, an entrepreneur, business advice guy. He said, do you really, think of that one person that you're afraid of judging you. Do you really want the reason you don't live this amazing, awesome, authentic life? Do you really want the reason to be you are afraid of her judging you? Like, is that the reason? Is that I'm scared mommy will judge me? That's the reason I want to live a shit life.
And the problem is with that is that the guys who make that excuse, if that's the first thing out of their mouths, the answer is yes. They do want to satisfy mom. I've spoken with these guys from India.
She'll be fucking dead.
We'll say again.
One day she will be fucking dead. And then what do you do for the rest of your life? You try and suck up to a ghost?
Right. But that's logic. These guys aren't dealing logically. They're terrified of mommy. They want to impress mommy because they've been taught their whole life it's all about mommy or daddy. Usually it's mommy. And they want this. And I've spoken in person with guys like this, and you can see the conflict in their face about, yes, this is completely irrational, but I have to do this. I've seen this a lot with people, when people are wrestling with their own societal programming, when woke left-wingers wrestle with, does socialism really work? And you can see, or right-wingers about, do you think Jesus really walked on water? Really? And you can see the pain, the neurons misfiring in their brain. Like, this is what he's saying is logical and rational. I have nothing logical and objective to say against it, but I have to think this way because I've been told. Yeah. And so that's the challenge with that is the answer is, and if the answer is yes, then great. You don't want to listen to my stuff. Go get married and monogamous and ruin your life and impress your mother until you get divorced. It's fine.
Yeah. And
Sure.
I feel like I already know the answer to this, but you don't really try what those people do. You try to a certain extent, and then you go, right, you're not my
I end
audience,
it. Yes, I end it. Yeah, as soon as I realize what I'm dealing with, I'm done. And I'm very good at saying, I mean, you know this. If this doesn't resonate with you, please don't listen to me. Please go away and listen to someone else. Yeah, this is not. I don't want you in my audience. If this is, you're wasting your time. You're wasting mine. Yeah, you're just wasting your time. Even if you're watching me for entertainment, but if you're watching me for entertainment, you should be upset about anything I say. I should be entertaining. So you really are wasting your time by watching my stuff. I did a YouTube video on literally if you don't resonate with what I'm saying or you don't trust what I'm saying, you should unsubscribe from all my mail lists and my YouTube videos and stop watching forever. And I had a guy saying, fuck you, I'm gonna watch. I don't agree with anything you say. You're full of shit. You're a liar, but I can keep watching you. Don't tell me what to do. So again, we're back to irrationality again. It's just part of the world in which we live.
Masochism.
Yeah.
To take a step back to something you said before, where you're talking about the very extreme example of like, what if I walk in and my wife is having sex with like 43 guys on my living room floor
with bigger cocks than me, and the worst male nightmare. Yep.
And I want to sort of talk a little bit about the distinction between boundaries and controlling somebody else. And so I think when people hear you, and I do the same thing, someone who's like very, namaste, let everybody do what they want to do.
Yeah.
They take that to the extreme and they go, oh, so that means you'd be okay with somebody slapping you across the face or like sticking their finger in your ear and like, no, I still have, and I'm sure you do too. I still have boundaries. And so in that example, would it be a boundary for you? Like, would you say to your wife, listen, you're going to do whatever you want to do. If you want to have sex with like 20 guys on the living room floor when I walk in, namaste, motherfucker, that's perfectly okay. I'm just going to leave. Like, I am piecing the fuck out. Like, is that how you would phrase that? So it's sort of like, this is my personal boundary. You do whatever you want, but this is what will probably happen.
I have a very specific system for this. So it depends on what type of relationship she's in. There's FBs, MLTRs, and OLTR. And so are you asking about in general, or you're asking specifically about if it was my wife?
Let's use the wife one, because that's the one that people take to the extreme.
All right, sure. So the wife one is a little different than an MLTR because this is someone you live with. Right? And so two things. You can do whatever you want, but you can't threaten my finances and you can't threaten my personal health. So if you want to go out and have sex with 20 guys without wearing a condom, get drunk at a bar and hook up random guys, you're threatening my health. So you can't do that. Now, I'm not going to say you can't do it. If that's something you want to do, we shouldn't be together.
Yeah.
So I never say you are not allowed to do this. You can do whatever you want, but I have to make a judgment. If you're doing something that's going to threaten my health, threaten my finances, so have strange men over at my house where I have a bunch of valuable equipment and gold and silver, and you're threatening my finances, and I don't do drama. So if you're gonna do something that's gonna, so I have dated not as a wife, but I've dated MLTRs who were having sex with other men, and sometimes the other men caused drama which spilled over to me from her. Well, you can't do that. I don't do drama. So you can do whatever you want, but I have to make a judgment call of who I spend my life with and who I spend my time with. So in an OLTR, which is a girlfriend or wife in my parlance, before you move in, you establish, and I hate the term, but it's true, ground rules. What is acceptable behavior from me? What is, okay, if you like that better, sure. I use rules because I'm a very direct guy. But yes, I don't like that word, but yes, boundaries. And these are something that you have mutually agreed upon. Very similar to how you run team members. If you have a team member in your business and they fuck up, you go back to, per our mutual agreement, we both agreed. It's the same thing with your wife. Per our mutual agreement, I didn't tell you this. We both agreed you are not going to do X, Y, and Z. For example, I have a rule that was from her to me in my marriage. I am not allowed to bring women over to the house, our home, unless she's involved somehow, which we do. But it's on independently, I can't just bring women over. I got to do it somewhere else. Fine. And if I were to break that rule, then she would have every right to say, this doesn't work anymore. We need to change the nature of this relationship, or I'm going to leave. That's how you look at this. And so when you live with someone, you can't say just do whatever you want. That's where the change occurs. If you have another human being in your house, you've got stuff in your house, you're talking about physical safety, you're talking about, in many cases, legal exposure. You have to have some ground rules if you live with somebody. But you want those to be the minimum number of rules possible. You don't want 47 rules, which is what typical in most relationships. 1 or 2 or 3, and that's it. You can do anything you want.
And I think in that process of talking about these rules or these boundaries, I've said this so many times, when you enter into a like non-monogamous or open or whatever you want to call it, relationship or dynamic, whether that's casual or serious or whatever, you just by the nature of what you're doing, you have to communicate more. And I think that's a big part of the reason, or at least it's part of the reason why monogamy has such an insane divorce rate, because people just have these rules, but they never talk about these rules,
Right.
and then
They're in their
kinda
head.
just on the sly. Yeah, let me just kind of cheat, but it's not cheating because like I was drunk at a party and you never said I couldn't cheat. So it's like,
Right.
and you never established like the boundaries or the rules. You never actually are
Precisely.
on the same page because you didn't even
Yeah.
fucking know what that page is.
Very good point. You're absolutely right about that. Right. Whereas in non-monogamy, you have to sit down and have these conversations.
Oh,
You can't
yeah.
not. You have to.
Because you're treading the untreaded path. For a lot of like women, and you tell me if this is your experience too, at least a lot of the women that I date, they've never done non-monogamy. Maybe they've like casually seen a couple of people at the same time, like off from Tinder, but they've never done this sort of like, let's establish what we want, ground rules, let's talk, let's be honest and upfront and all of that shit. And so by the very nature of it, you have to fucking talk about it because they don't know what the hell they're entering into. They're like, well, what do I do? What do you do? What's going to go on? And so communication, man, so unbelievably key. I don't know how you can do it without. And it blows my fucking mind that the vast majority of monogamous relationships, they've never had a conversation of like, what are we going to do if one of us cheats on the other person? What are we going to do if you start getting that itch to go and sleep with someone else? What do we do? Have you ever thought about a threesome? Have you ever done this? Blah, blah, blah. They just don't have that conversation. It just goes unsaid. And they just hope on blind goddamn faith that the other person, and this is where you sort of make this point, they hope that the other person will have that sort of, what do you call it? You call it new relationship energy or like the honeymoon phase. They hope that that will go on for the rest of eternity. And that when they're like 60, they'll just be like, but I love you too much to cheat on you, honey bunny. And it's like, not after like 5 fucking kids and divorce and losing your job and all of that shit. So communication is key.
Yeah. Adults get into traditional monogamous relationships, even if it's just boyfriend, girlfriend. And the model they follow is the model of the adolescent. They don't get past adolescence into adulthood. So they say, this is what adults do. They say, we're going to be together. And sometimes we'll be together forever. We're not going to have sex with the people because we love each other. That's the thought process of a 15-year-old. When you see a 15-year-old get a girlfriend or boyfriend, or these like 16, 17-year-olds who get married, that's exactly what they say. Well, we're in love. This isn't going to work. What are you doing, you moron? But we're in love. You don't understand. I'm so in love with this person. This is a perfect person for me. And they never break out of that adolescent phase of development in their heads in terms of having long-term into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They still have this thing, well, we're in love, so it'll work. So they don't actually think this logically. It's all subconscious, to your point. We don't need to have that conversation. Why would someone cheat? We're in love. We're like perfect for each other. Why would we have to have that conversation? The relationship structures you and I are talking about are adult structures. So what an adult does, not a 15-year-old, but what an adult does is when you start getting feelings about you want to spend your long-term future with someone, you sit down with that person and you say, okay, here's the deal. This is what I want. Let's talk about what you want. Let's talk about what's reasonable based on the fact that we're human beings with human biology and human desires and human failings. Mm-hmm. Let's discuss this and put it all on the table right now. And let's discuss ground rules around this so we can make this work. So if and when we have these problems, we don't have a nuclear explosion. We don't have to get divorced or break up or ruin our kids. That's what an adult does. But very few people break out of that adolescent mode in their heads in terms of long-term relationships. They just don't, which is unfortunate.
I think most people see it, and I used to be like this as well, Caleb. Like my first 2 relationships, I was like, I thought they were the one, and then afterwards I look back and I'm like, well, no, like especially the second one, like literally was violent and hit me and abused me. Like, why did I think that she was? Anyway, separate discussion. But I think a lot of people, because I think a lot of people don't want or shy away from or avoid the kind of relationships that you and I are talking about, where you basically talk about it, you communicate, you set ground rules. They don't want it because they feel like it takes away the magic. They feel like to have the conversation of like, what do we do if one of us cheats? They feel like, well, that just ruins the magic of the show. That's like finding out how the magician makes his tricks. But I know for you, because avoiding drama is such a big thing, you're like, I don't give a fuck if I know how the magician does his tricks. I want to make sure he doesn't trick me. Like, I need to know how this damn thing works. Yeah.
And to your point, when women have that view, they're right. It does kill some of the romance for women. It does. It's a very unromantic. I talk about having the talk.
Yep.
Where you finally verbalize
you establish like what it is. Yeah.
Right. You verbalize everything, and then there's a second talk. If you get to OL talk or the OLTR talk, these are very unromantic talks Now you try to make them as romantic as possible. That's why I taught you use a Disney sandwich. I love you. I want to be with you forever. I think about you all the time. I can't wait to see you. I see a long-term future with us, but non-monogamy, ground rules. And I love you so much. I hope this works out. This is great. So you kind of sandwich it as best as you can, but they're not very romantic. And but to your point, and so when women in particular say that, they're kind of right. It does kill some of the romance. That's why you have to do things like I talked about the cardinal rules. That's why you have to ramp your attraction up so high before you have that talk. She survives the talk because you've done everything right. She is so attracted to you, she can take that hit in the romance a little bit and continue on with you. But to your point, yes, I don't care if it kills the romance. I don't want problems in my life. When you get into a monogamous relationship, what you're doing is you're setting a time bomb and you're putting it in your apartment somewhere, and it's on a timer, but you don't know what the timer is. It could be 6 months, it could be 7 years, it could be 3 weeks. You don't know, and it's going to explode and fuck up your apartment. You're purposely implementing future problems in your life, and I can't do that. I want my future self to be very happy. I care a lot about my future self, so I can't do. I'd rather have a weird, uncomfortable, unromantic conversation now to prevent all those problems.
Yeah, I've always looked at you and myself absolutely the same thing. This is going to be the wrong word for it, but it's the only clumsy word I can think of. Is like autistic. What I mean is I don't think we're actually autistic, but like I would rather delete all of the romance if it means I don't have to deal with any drama. And so I would rather just like have it.
Well, that's what FB is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why FBs are awesome. That's why FBs are my favorite relationship type. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And I love them to death. It's not like I don't like these people. I care about these people a lot, very closely, but there's no romance. So yeah,
there's no, and when we're talking about romance here, we're talking about like going on a weekend getaway and stuff like that. Because I've said the exact same stuff. The way you phrase it is like, I mean, you probably phrase it the way that I phrase it, which is like, don't be giving her the wrong impression. Like that's just unkind to her. Right. It's going to lead to drama. It's confusing. If you're going on these weekend long trips when you're just a casual relationship,
right?
It's mixed messages. It's like, yo, what is this? Like, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? So
that's why I developed the 3 relationship levels, and they're very distinct, and the rules are distinct for each because guys don't have this distinction of terms of types of relationships. They just, I like this girl, so let's go do this. And then there's an explosion. Oh, why did that happen? Well, because she's an FB, you were treating her like a girlfriend. And of course she's going to give you drama down the road. Of course she's going to explode. It's your fault. Instead, you have to understand what she is and then do the things with her that are conducive to that type of relationship. And if you want to change the type of relationship, there's a process by which you do that. And now she's in a new relationship. Now you can do the other things. Then you avoid all these problems.
Yeah, and I think like we said, it does kind of take some of the magic out, but holy crap, it takes almost all of the drama out. And I would take that in a heartbeat over like, and I don't know about you, but I used to chase drama. I used to love that. I used to love the up and down.
Yeah, a lot of guys
like
do.
You kind of avoided it for the most part, but I loved it. I loved those like blowing up moments where I could go and run off to my little friends and be like, oh my God, like this girl said, what are we? And then she's threatened to leave and blah, blah, blah. And it was at one point when one of my friends said, mate, you love drama. And I was like, no, I don't. I hate drama. And he's like, then why do we always have these conversations month in, month out where you just put drama at the table? And I was like, no, like you can't be right. I went away and thought about it for 2 weeks. I was so mad at him. And then I came back and I was like, you're correct. Yeah.
It's a high.
Chasing drama. Yeah.
Yeah. For certain personality types, drama is a high. It's a negative high, but it's still a high. And people get addicted to the high. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked about this a lot.
So crazy. And you get to talk about it. Yeah.
Right. You got to replace that with positive highs that have no negative side effects. Right.
And I think a lot of guys, sorry to interrupt. I think a lot of guys, when they delete that, it's not even a high. It's a high, but it's also a low. So I guess it's a high. When they take away that dopamine hit of like having a big fight or having a big drama or what is she thinking or what is this or what does she mean by that? All of that bullshit, the drama, relationship stuff that I avoid and that you avoid. When you take that away, for a lot of guys, they're like, well, now there's nothing left. Like I didn't really like this girl that much. And they find that they've been chasing, and this was in my case, you're chasing women that bring drama and not necessarily much else. Because you weren't even seeking other qualities. You weren't trying to find a woman who's interesting. You weren't trying to find a woman who's attractive, who's good at sex, who's ambitious, who's this, who's that, who you respect, whatever it might be, because you were just chasing drama. And so you take that drama away and you're like, man, this girl is kind of boring. And I've seen guys, one of my old friends in particular, who will like then spark drama in women, like literally push them and train.
Yes.
Because it's like he's missing that height. It's literally like a heroin.
He needs to have it. That's correct.
Yeah. And so I can see how guys get fueled up on this dopamine of the one and the soulmate, and they're almost, I think you've talked about this, where they almost get addicted to being in like medium-term relationships. What's it called? Where they like hop from one to another? Is it you
Serial
who's talked
monogamy?
about this? Yeah.
Yeah.
But they get addicted to the serial monogamy, and so they'll break up with some girl. 1 month later, they're talking about this new girl. She's the one
Right.
for me, guys.
They
She's
get
my
addicted to
soulmate.
the newness. Right.
Yeah. And
The
they're
breakup
chasing
and the
that
newness,
now.
both. They have a breakup, the high,
Women do
the
this
negative
too.
high of the breakup, then they have the high of the NRE again.
Yep.
And the only way you can have NRE is if you break up and do it with someone new. Right. And what they
So
don't
how-
understand is, oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
What those guys don't understand is you can maintain low drama relationships with women and bring in new women all the time and have all the fucking NRE you want. I did it for years. Still do it. I don't have NRE anymore, but I have, the excitement of a new attractive woman. You can keep, if you're non-monogamous, you can have that forever. Because I'll get a lot of guys who say there's two types of guys. There's pleasure of sex men and thrill to hunt men. And
I've
so
talked about this a lot.
yeah, okay, perfect. So right. And so some guys will say, well, I'm a thrill to hunt guy. How do I ever get married? How do I ever settle down? I'm going to want this at some point. Caleb, yeah, you're right. I'm going to want this at some point. How do I do that? Well, what you do that is you implement that in your side life. So you have your wife, who is your rock, as long as she's there. We can't guarantee she'll be there forever. And then you have new girls and the newness and the thrill of the hunt on the side with your FBs. And you're constantly rotating in and out new FBs, which takes time and effort, but you like that. That's it. You can have both if you're just a little creative and a little strategic.
If you want to. I think it's, for me at least, it was absolutely giving myself permission, and you gave me that permission. So like, namaste, thank you very much. But it was giving myself that permission to say, I'm allowed to do this. I'm not a bad person if I do this. I'm not evil. I'm not a toxic man. All that kind of societal programming of like, you shouldn't be having sex with more than one woman. That's using women. And that was a big thing that I had to wrap my head around. Was like, yeah, why am I using the women? If they're consenting, if they're having fun, if they're telling me they like me, if they say the sex is amazing.
If they're consenting and you're not lying and not leading them on, why? And those people who say that can't answer that question. Well, you just shouldn't. All right, that's societal programming. It means you have no reasoning behind what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're lying to women, yes, that's different. But that's very small category, especially these days. That was actually more popular like back in the 80s in my day, where these players would say, oh yeah, I'll marry you. I love you. And they'd have 3 or 4 women. But that men are so beta and low T now that just doesn't happen anymore. So you don't have that problem anymore. So yes, you're not, as long as you're not lying, you're not leading them on, and it's consensual, it's not doing anything wrong. Matter of fact, you're doing what they want, or else they would stop seeing you. That's the thing too. The models I teach, the woman is allowed to leave, the woman or women is allowed to leave whenever they want with no drama from you, including if you're married. My wife could tomorrow morning say, I'm leaving, and I would say, that makes me very sad. I'm sorry. I love you. I'll help you pack. Fine.
Yeah.
So that means that they're staying because they choose. You're not making anyone do anything.
Yeah. I don't know if you have that as an actual conversation. I just have that conversation with women. I'm like, yo, you can leave whenever you want. And the way that I phrase it is, I would rather you be happy with someone else than unhappy with me.
I've said things like that. And yes, I've told my wife this. We've been together 8 years now, but I've said this to her several times. You can leave whenever you want, especially if she's complaining about something I'm doing, going to change. Usually I'll try to negotiate or compromise if it's a minor thing, because I'm alcohol dependent. I don't care about little things. Fine, do it. But if it's something that I'm not going to change, well, I don't like that. Well, you can leave whenever you want.
Yeah, I've had that.
I completely understand that. I love you and I want what's best for you. You can leave whenever you like. Yeah, and then that shuts them up. What response do they have? I remember
she runs the cost benefit analysis in her head. She's like, okay, what happens if I leave? What do I get? What happens if I stay? What do I get? And she's like, you know what? It's worth me staying. I'm getting more out of this relationship than I'm losing from it. So.
Yeah, I remember the moment I learned this in real life. So I used to listen. This is like 25 years ago now. There was a very popular jock, guy on the radio, Tom Likas, and
Tom Likas.
Yes, you know. And he would mention there was a documentary done about him. He was dating the problem with Tom Likas, he dated really high drama women. But anyway, he's dating this high drama woman, and they were sitting on the couch, and he goes, look, I walk my talk. You can watch this on the documentary. She was bitching and moaning about something about him. And he said, you know, if you don't like it, there's the door. And then she immediately shut up, because what is she going to say? So this is back when I was monogamous and married as a beta male, my first marriage, a billion years ago. And this is a few months before my divorce. And my wife at the time was in my home office screaming and yelling about something, a banking thing. And this is when I started to alpha up in my life. And I said, let me try this. Normally we'd have arguments for like 45 minutes, an hour long, which is what most normal people do. They have arguments for an hour long. You both go away mad, nothing's resolved. So instead of arguing for an hour, I said, let me try this. And I really had to steel myself and work myself to do this. I said, this is the way we're doing it. If you don't like it, there's the door. I'd never say anything to like that to her in my life. And she goes, and she turned around and left. She left my office. And I went, holy shit, it works. I just ended the argument instantly. This is amazing. Why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And so that's been and then we got divorced 6 months later, but that was a good thing. I shouldn't have been married to her. She should have been married to me. And so from that point on, every woman I've been with, that's been my frame. You can leave whenever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're not going to tell me what to do either. If you don't like it, you can leave whenever you want. Go date someone else. Perfectly fine. And I've even said to some women, not my wife, but some women, you'd probably be happier with a guy who's a little more, I won't say the word beta, but a little more submissive, a little more, okay, honey, you might be happier with a guy like that. And the women go, no, I like manly men. Well, you have a decision to make then, don't you?
Yeah, there's cost benefits. There's things that come with that. Like, you can't get one without the other. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you want the man who has, you'd call it like abundance mentality. I just call it like not giving a fuck. If you want that guy, then yes, by definition, he's going to not give a fuck when you're throwing a tantrum or something like that. Now, obviously, there's compromises. I feel like we add that disclaimer in there. You talk about things. You don't just, it's not Caleb Jones's way 100% of the time.
If it's an OLTR, yes. If it's an MLTR, no, I'm not compromising a fucking thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But if it's an OLTR, if it's your wife, yes, you got to, and the way I handle that is I'm outcome independent. If it's not a major issue, I give it to her. So like our entire house is decorated the way she wants. I don't fucking care. Why would I argue about this? Other than my office, I need that to work a certain way. It's my office. The entire rest of the house is whatever she. I don't care. When we go out, Fridays is our day together. Almost always we go to somewhere she wants to go. Okay, I don't care. These are minor things, so I just give it to her. Now, if you're an alpha male 1.0, you say, no, we're going here. And then you argue.
Yeah.
But on the macro, guess what? On the macro, in terms of how I manage my finances, I'm 100% it's me. And in terms of who I have sex with and how often that's me. There's no compromising on the macro. I do what I want. How do I run my company? We have separate finances, my investments, how I manage my time management every day. The big picture stuff, that's me. But on everything little I give her. So that's how I handle that.
I think that last thing you just said before, on the macro, on the finances and all of that kind of stuff, I do what I want. You're still doing what you want when you say to her, hey, like, where do you want to go? Because you don't care. So by definition, you're like, yeah, I want to go where she wants to go. But if I didn't want to go, then we'd have that discussion. I'd say I don't want to do that. And so that's the question I ask myself. When my girlfriend wants me to do something, for instance, just like your wife, she wants to fucking decorate my apartment and have cushions and this and like all the female bullshit.
Of course.
And when I talk about that, I say I phrase it like this. You know how birds and most animals from the dawn of time, they make nests. When women decorate the house, that's what they're doing. They're building their fucking nest because they want it to look pretty and nice.
Accurate.
And so in my mind, I don't want a bunch of... It's not that I don't give a shit if there's a bunch of cushions and a rug. And like, I literally don't care. My apartment by default is just blank walls, blank fucking, like, no, I'll have maybe a couch over there. Yeah. I just don't give a shit. I like an empty room. I just do. But I want her to be happy. I don't care about the cushions and stuff like that. It's not like I'm massively against them. So I ask myself the question, am I happy? Do I want a rug? Well, I see it'll make her happy. I personally don't really give a shit. I'm not invested either way. Sure, I want to do this. And I think that's sort of a nuance that a lot of guys go to one extreme or the other. Like you said, you'll get the alpha males who are like no fucking rugs, no fucking cushions. And then she's like, but do you even care about if there's a rug or a cushion? Well, no, but like fucking it's everything I want. And if you have that attitude, it feels like it's just a fucking inhuman steel rock or something that she can never... I think women have this sort of fantasy, or maybe it's just part of women's biology, that they want an amazing man that no other woman can change, but she can just like gently like shave off some of the sharp edges. And it's kind of this weird or maybe beautiful dynamic between the man, you would call him an alpha male, versus the woman, where it's like, how much can I shave off? But here, I also want him to sometimes say, no, don't shave anything. Like, you're not shaving this edge off. And so it's this sort of like, I phrase it almost like a beautiful dance where she's trying to see if she can get you to open up to her and maybe do some things for her, while at the same time making sure you don't do too much, because that's like going in this territory of a simp. So how does the guy sort of balance that? Not giving her too much, but then at the same time not just being like a fucking psycho who never gives anything.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're talking about like wife?
Wife,
again, depends the category.
Extremely serious girlfriend. Let's say like you guys.
Okay, extremely serious girlfriend and wife. That's about the same thing. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
It's what I just said. So it's what I just said plus something else. So if it's minor, give it to her. Who cares? Is it really worth you having drama about how many cushions are on the couch? Now, if you're an alpha male 1.0, yes, God damn it. Okay, great. Then you're never going to be long-term happy, and that's your life. That's fine. If you're a beta male, she does whatever she wants, even on the macro, because then she'll leave me and she'll get mad at me, and I don't want her to leave. I love her. She's the only one, and so that's the beta. So the alpha 2.0 says if it's minor, give it to her. Who cares? You should be busy building your companies, traveling the world, having sex with other women, not getting fat as you get older. The macro shit. You should be focused on that. Why would you take energy away from those things to bitch about the number of plates on the thing? Fucking hell, man. So that's number one. Number two, I talk about this in my books. I talk about the use of zones if you live with a woman. So instead of saying the entire house is ours, you chuck that. Communism doesn't work. So instead you say, we're going to look at each zone in the house, each room in the house, and it's going to be yours or mine. And maybe there's a shared zone, one or two little ones, but that's going to be the exception. So what I teach is separate bathrooms and separate kitchens. Separate kitchens. So I have a separate kitchen from my wife. I have a separate bathroom from my wife. Now, does that mean I have my house has two entire kitchens? No. The kitchen in the house, I give to her. I don't care. I don't need a fancy kitchen. I'm a guy. Who gives a shit? So I have a room with a sink. All you need is a room with a sink in it, and you get a microwave and a little refrigerator. Now you have your own kitchen. Now you're good to go. So if you have your own kitchen and your own bathroom, most of the arguments you have revolving these kinds of things, you don't have. I have seen so many married couples argue about the kitchen. Why'd you leave this knife here? Why did you leave this cup in the sink? God damn it. Why did you? It is a norm in the universe to bitch about the kitchen, especially when you have two people, in my case, myself and my wife, two reasonably opinionated people about how they like things. Great. Now she can do whatever she wants with her kitchen. I can do whatever I want with my kitchen, and we never argue about anything. The rare times we've had to share a kitchen, like we travel, why'd you do what? I'm like, okay, yeah, this is why we have two kitchens. So you have zones in the house. So my office is my zone, my room. She has no authority whatsoever. It's my room. She can come into my room, but it's my room. The living room is hers. Our dining room, it's hers. She can do anything I can hang out in there, but it's her room. Our bedroom is hers. I can put a little stuff on the counter, but it's hers. And I decide about the bed because sleep is a priority to me. Outside of that, she can decorate. I don't give a fuck. Who cares? All I do in there is sleep and maybe have sex. That's it. So you have zones in the house that are hers or yours. The same way, by the way, you manage your finances with a girlfriend or wife. You have completely separate finances. You do not have any shared bills. So you have separate cell phone bills, separate checking accounts, separate investments, separate credit cards, separate car leases. If you have a mortgage on the house or a rent, it's in one of your names, not both your names. This eliminates all the arguments. And also, if you break up like that and there's no problems. All the time, including people in my family, guys will move in with their girlfriend. They'll buy a house together. You fucking moron. And then in 2 years, 3 years, they break up. Now they got to figure out who owns the house. They got to sell the house. It takes 6 months. You're dealing with someone you hate to sell the house. You're arguing about equity and nightmare. But even during the house, who's in charge of the house if it's both of yours? The answer is you argue. And when you argue, the result's going to be one of you is going to compromise and build resentment, and the other one's going to get what they want. And it's never, you're both happy. Whereas if you have your own stuff, you should share everything, but you should co-own nothing. I tell a story about the shovel. You should share everything, co-own nothing. And then you don't have these arguments. Plus the thing about if it's minor, give it to her.
A lot of this is very like radical notions. And that's why I say a lot of what you do is give guys permission to do stuff that maybe they hadn't ever thought of. It's like very out the box. But when you actually start implementing it, you're like, wait, this makes a lot of sense. I've inadvertently, without ever really thinking about it, done the same thing with my girlfriend. She's currently staying at my place and we're about to have separate apartments because we specifically want to live in separate apartments. It just works better for us.
Great.
But while she's living with me, we've kind of done the same thing. It's like, right, living room and kitchen, you do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit. Like, I literally don't give a shit. Don't touch my fucking bedroom there. Don't fucking touch my bedroom. For me, my bedroom is my safe space and this podcast room that I'm in right now. And just doing that and then going, honey, decorate whatever the fuck else you want, but you don't touch these 2 rooms. It just accidentally works. 2 bathrooms. Oh man, we have 2 bathrooms, and that is just like, because you don't have her hair all over the place.
Sharing a bathroom with a woman, I don't understand why men still do this. They say, so what? Well, go do it for 3 years, bro. And then the excuse I get is, well, what? Maybe, sometimes young couples can't afford a place with 2 bathrooms. If you can't afford a place with 2 bathrooms, you're too young to get married or live with a woman. You shouldn't move in with a woman until you're 35 anyway, motherfucker. So no. So if you're young and don't have any money, you shouldn't be living with a woman anyway. You don't move in with a woman until you can actually afford these logistics. And again, you don't literally need 2 guys like 2 kitchens. That's ridiculous. No house with 2 kitchens. You don't need 2 kitchens. You need another room with a sink in it. Worst case scenario, another room with a little bathroom. You use the bathroom. That's worst case scenario. That's all you need. So yeah, right. That's how it works. We don't argue about all the stuff that most couples argue about. We just don't. Not that we never argue. When you live with somebody, you argue occasionally. But if we have a disagreement, it's over something pretty macro. It's something important. Yeah. It's not about the fucking, why'd you leave the coffee cup in the thing? Because I see it all day, constantly with couples. Why'd you do this and why'd you do that? Why'd you leave the keys hanging here? Yeah, can't live that way unless you don't care about happiness.
I think there's some weird meme or just some weird societal programming, as you'd call it, that like arguments are completely normal. And like, yeah, minor disagreements, of course, because you're discussing, it's like we're emotional creatures and all that sort of stuff. But like, fucking hell, like having a big proper argument, like for me, that's just not something that I ever want. And yes, I have had a couple of big arguments with my girlfriend. Now, most of those were in the early days of the relationship, but I just think it's this weird meme that people have that like couples are supposed to argue. I've even heard Jordan Peterson, who's someone that I respect and admire, literally say like it's very healthy and normal to have big arguments. And it's like, I just don't see that, my friend. Like, I don't know why it has to be an argument when it could be a simple discussion. Or like you're talking about, put some systems in place and some, structures in place so that like you don't even have the argument. Like literally, what is there to argue about?
Right. And someone like Jordan Peterson would be horrified of the things I just said in the last 10 minutes. He would never implement.
He does not.
You should share the kitchen because that's what right. That's what the Bible says, and that's what you should do. And that he would be horrified. But again, people like him and Jordan Peterson, I like him personally. I disagree with some of his concepts. It's more of his followers I don't like. He's fine. He is on record as saying many times, the guys have brought this to my attention, that happiness isn't important. You don't focus on happiness. You focus on meaning, which is incorrect. You focus on happiness and you develop meaning, your mission, to accomplish your long-term happiness. You don't say, don't worry about happiness, focus on meaning. You'll end up like Jordan Peterson. Have you seen his Twitter? He's angry all the time.
Recently, yeah, he's been going down a weird spiral. I've said the same thing. I've said if you put your happiness off while you currently work on your goals, what will happen is you'll achieve those goals. And because you haven't practiced happiness, because you don't even know what it looks like when it hits you in the face, you won't know how to enjoy it. You won't even know what happiness is. Like happiness is something that you have to, ironically, set as a goal in itself. Or it's more like a practice. It's like a garden that you water every day. Like you work on your happiness. You become happier over time. You do the things that make you happy. Meditation, getting good fucking sleep, things like that. If you neglect your happiness, you'll reach your goals and not know how to be happy. You see this with like every Olympian ever and celebrities and rich people. And they hit those goals and they're like, I don't know how to be happy because you never practiced it. You literally didn't practice it.
And the other side of that is there is a contingent of people. It's a smaller category these days because the world becomes more left-wing every year, but a contingent of people who are the more traditional conservative, right-wingish, Christianish traditionalists who will, as soon as the discussion you and I have been having about happiness makes them very uncomfortable. Wait a minute. This is not about happiness. Life is not about happiness. Life's about being a good husband and a good man, a good father. And sacrificing and put your nose to the grindstone and voting for Republicans and saving the Western world. And, that's what it's not about happiness. How selfish. So you have that too. Yeah. And Jordan Peterson he's not an extremist on that, but he's a component of that. But a lot of people are. I get plenty of guys who say, is it, focusing on happiness, that just doesn't seem right. And they're coming from more the religious, traditional. What's that?
They'll say it's very hedonistic. It's very selfish.
For that, yes, very selfish, hedonistic, immature. Right.
Yeah,
All the
that's
words
right.
that they have been trained by society and mommy and daddy and church and Hollywood to say. No.
Hmm, hmm.
Right.
On a slightly different topic, what got you into writing? Because you started out writing a blog, you still write from time to time. What got you into doing self-improvement content, I guess, rather than like any other business that you could have started?
I was a self-improvement junkie when I was a young man in my 20s. So back in those days, in the 90s, you used cassette tapes and you put them in your car and you listen to business cassette tapes. I was really big on that stuff because I had big goals in my 20s. Bigger goals now. But that's just the world I was accustomed to, and it's a world that made sense to me. And that's why I got that bug. Because it was a world I was just very comfortable with and excited about, and I had big mentors, guys like Brian Tracy and things like that, who I really liked. Tony Robbins to a degree too,
Yep.
So those old school guys I really resonated with. I didn't want to be like them, but that's why. That's been my life, my whole adult life, starting when I was about 19, 20. I started listening to that stuff. So from early age, and I'm 51. So that's been a long time. Yeah.
What courses and programs do you have that people who want a little bit more from you, what do you offer?
So I have a lot. So if you go to for the dating stuff, you have, I have a lot of stuff. If you go to alphamale20.com, you can sign up for a alpha male starter kit. And I cover both dating and relationships, both. You can also go to store.calebjones.com. That's all my courses and all my books. I've got about 8 books. I've got about 8 or 9 courses. I've got about 15 mini courses, and I have 4 coaching programs. So a lot of stuff. Some of those are focused on dating. Some of those are focused on business. Some of those are focused on both. So those are the 2 links I would direct you to if you want to learn more. But it's all about being free. We as men, and there are rare exceptions, but we as men tend to be happier to the degree we could wake up every morning and do whatever we want, whenever we feel like it, with whomever we like, without having to check in with anyone. So if you have a job, you don't live that life. If you have a monogamous girlfriend or wife, you don't live that life. I would argue if you're stuck in your current location, I talk a lot about location dependence and international stuff. You don't live that life. You're dependent on your country. So you've got to get to the point where you are free of these things. You can still have these things that these things provide. You can have your own business, a location-independent business that you control, that generates income so you can pay your bills anywhere you want in the world. You can have a special woman in your life, including wife or girlfriend, but have other women too, so she doesn't completely control your sex life. You can be location-independent, so you can go wherever you want. I'm in Armenia in a hotel room right now. So you can do these things, and you kind of mentioned this at the beginning. We live in an era now where these things are the easiest they have ever been.
Yes.
By far. I marvel at men who started companies back in the 40s and the 50s, not only before internet, but before things like Federal Express. If you wanted to send an email to someone, you had to type it on a piece of paper like this, tick, 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 put it in an envelope and wait a week for a response. And you couldn't go to Upwork and find outsourcing people. You couldn't go to social media. You had to hire employees, and you had to go call people and knock on doors. I'm in awe of these men. It's just extraordinary they were able to pull this off. It is so easy now to start a location-dependent business and make money. And then dating multiple women. When I got started in this world to 2007, I did it, but it was hard. You had to really convince women to date you and be allowed to date other women, because they'd say, well, if you find the right guy, it'll all work out. Now, do women say that today? Are you fucking kidding? No, they go, yeah. A lot of women will actually bring this to your attention. So it's 10 times easier. Also, older men dating younger women. That's another one. I used to do that many years ago. It was hard for a guy in his late 30s, 40s to date a 19, 18-year-old. You could do it, but you had to work really hard. Today, they prefer men who are older.
Yeah.
So all these models, and then international stuff, all this stuff is the easiest it's ever been. It's actually not as difficult as it was back when I was doing this 16 years ago. So this is the perfect time to do this. And I would also add, this is off top of what we're talking about. The Western world is in a state of collapse. It's a slow state of collapse, but it is. It's getting worse every year. It's going to continue to get worse, and it's going to get really bad. If you don't adopt these models, We're at an era now where I believe you need to adopt these models. Before they were optional. In my opinion, you need location-dependent income. You need it. You need non-monogamy. You need to not be reliant on a 9-to-5 job. If you have a 9-to-5 job right now and you either don't have sex or you're with a monogamous girlfriend or wife, and 100% of your assets are in the stock market of your country, and that's it, and that's your entire life revolves around that, you're in really big trouble. I mean, you're already feeling the pain now if that's in the category. I know you're not in the category, but if that's the category and it's going to get worse and worse, you need these models now. So A, it's the easiest it's ever been, and B, it's the most mandatory it's ever been. So this is the perfect time.
Yeah, I think COVID definitely taught me that, or the lockdowns. I don't blame
Yes.
the lockdowns. In my country, in Australia, we just, especially in the city that I was in Melbourne, they went batshit insane. Like,
I know they did.
literally batshit insane.
I couldn't believe it.
That was a big eye-opener to me. We fled to the bush, like we went out into a rural area, and I was like, okay, over the next 3 years, we're going to grind and hustle on this business. We're going to make a ridiculous amount of money. We're getting the fuck out. Like,
yes.
Australia is not my home ever again. I'm sorry, but it's like emotionally.
Good for you. Excellent. I wish more people had that kind of foresight. I wish more people made that decision. A lot of people are. Yeah, I moved out of the United States in 2021. I live in Dubai now because there's no taxes there. And my original plan, if you guys read my blogs way back in the day, my original plan was to move out of the United States in 2025, starting in around 2012. So I started writing the world for a long time ago. But then 2021 or 2020? 2020 hit, and A, the lockdowns, but B, in my country, my ex-country, United States, we had the Floyd riots, where the whole country was on fire for several months. Yep. And then you had the people on the left saying, well, you know, sometimes you have to burn down people's apartment buildings. Yeah. The peaceful protesters. You know, sometimes you have to burn down people's houses, and sometimes you have to steal people's cars, because sometimes violence is the only thing people listen to. Okay, you've lost your mind. Then you had people on the right, the Trump people. You have these cops who would be knocking 75-year-old men to the ground and cracking their skulls open. You have police officers driving their police cars through protesters on purpose. You have cops shooting rubber bullets at journalists who are just standing there talking into a camera, and they would say, well, yeah, you need to do that. You know, hey man, law and order. I'm like, okay, you've lost your mind too. So I said, that's when I said to my wife, I'm not waiting 2025. We're getting out now. And in February 2021, I was out. And thank God, I'm so much happier. I was already happy to begin with, but I'm so much at the weight, and you'll experience this when you leave Australia. The weight that lifts off your shoulders when you don't live there anymore, and now it's someone else's problem. It's so nice. I see all these school shootings and stuff, and I go, well, yeah, your problem.
It's not even that you don't live there. Like, the part that's always appealed to me is that you don't have to live there. So it's not even like, oh, I'm in a better country. It's like, I'm in a better country, and if this one goes to shit, I can just move.
Right.
Like,
I talk about international plan B, having a plan B. Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I tell guys, if you don't want to move out of your country because that's just beyond the pale, you can get residency in one of 5-6 countries that we teach. They're really easy. I have residency here, and I have residency in 5 different countries. Argentina is one of them. Get residency somewhere, learn the country, maybe get a bank account there, get some money in there, and now, to your point, you can stay in your collapsing Western country, fine, but you know you can be out of there in 72 hours whenever you need to, and you're good to go. Great. Yeah.
Love it. I will give you a final little jerk off, a final little thank you. Again, you, like I said many, many, many times, gave me permission to go after a lot of this stuff. Like, your content really did blow my mind. Good Looking Loser blew my mind as well. But especially in terms of open relationships and not being tethered to one woman, you absolutely gave me the permission to do that. Definitely with location independent income and all of that sort of stuff. So I will always be super grateful. I have also been on the inside of one of your coaching programs, your Superior Man Inner Circle. And the amount of content that you have in there is like psychopathically amazing. There is like so much, guys, like if I can just give one shout out to Caleb Jones, it's like, go sign up for his Superior Man Inner Circle.
Now it's called Unchained Man Society. We changed the name. Unchained Man Society.
Perfect. Unchained Man Society. Go and sign up. There is like, I think like 80 or 100 podcasts that are like way more advanced than the stuff that you have on your YouTube channel. And you gave me permission to do the same thing with my coaching program. After being in yours, I was like, man, I got to do the same thing. So I've started a library of exactly like you've done, more advanced content. So
great. Holy shit. And I've already told you this. I'll tell you this again. You're one of the guys who actually did it. You actually took action. Unlike most men in this society today, including men in your age range, so men under 35, they're really bad at taking action. They watch stuff like this, they go, this is really cool. And they don't do shit. And they go right back to their lives, and they don't actually take any action. And you're an example for you guys watching. Andy is an example of someone who actually took the action, actually did this stuff. So now he's got a business. He's got location independent income. He's dating multiple women. He's having a great life because he took action. And it's not, I mean, to be honest, be honest now, even if you think this isn't the answer I want. Was it really difficult to do? Or was it not that bad?
There were a lot of stumbles. There was a lot of like confusion and not knowing what to do. But like, no, I one of my biggest philosophies in the first article I ever wrote is give yourself permission to suck.
Yeah.
And I fucking sucked at everything I've done. I sucked so unbelievably bad at business. I was awful with women, like just absolutely abysmal, like painfully so. But I just didn't quit. That's it. It's like literally just that. If I can distill it all down to one thing, it's like, just don't quit. That's it. And so to answer your question, no, it really wasn't that fucking hard. I was often surprised that I would reach, the big milestones or the big goals, or, like I had my first ever threesome and then a couple more after that. And I was like, wait, this was supposed to take like 5 more years than it actually took. Right. Same with business. I was like, this was supposed to take like 10 or 15 years before I hit this much money in a month.
Right.
Like, almost like I felt guilty. I was like, shouldn't I have paid more of a price? Shouldn't this have hurt more?
So funny.
And it's like, no. Like people drastically overestimate how much work it's actually going to take. Some people drastically underestimate. But I think people just have this idea of like, I'm going to have to grind at business for the next 20 years. And so therefore, what's the point? Like, no, just start.
No. I'll give you 2 quick examples of that. One is, I mentioned I started this in 2007, a divorced, overweight, balding, beta male dad with 10 years out of practice. And by 2009, so 2 years-ish, I had 4 women on rotation. 2 of them were 18 years old. This is not sugar daddy. I didn't pay them any money. This was all no money. I was seeing all of them. They're all hot. And I was like, this only took 2 years.
Yeah.
Same thing. I thought this would take 5 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
This only took 2 years. And there were certain things I could have done to even speed that up. And then on the business side, one of our programs is called the 90-Day Business Builder, 90daybizbuilder.com if you want to look at it, where literally we take people in and we tell them what to do in terms of setting up their own, even if they have no idea what to sell, they have no idea what to do. And we have guys making thousands of dollars, and we guarantee it by the end of 90 days. We have guys making thousands of dollars in 90 days. Forget 2 or 3 years. We just had a guy made $14,000. And it's not difficult. If you know what the steps are to take them and you actually do them, to my point, you actually take the action. This stuff comes much faster than you think. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about that. I didn't even think of that. You're right. Yeah.
So go take action. Where can people find more of you?
Alphamale20.com is my dating stuff. My business stuff is calebjones.com. That's CalebJones. And on both those, you can subscribe to, on calebjones.com, you can subscribe to, actually, I'll give you another one. Free biz course. I've forgotten. Never mind. calebjones.com is good enough. You can subscribe to free courses where they're video courses with no sales. Actually, how to build a location independent business. You can subscribe to those. You download the location independence toolkit and you can subscribe to that. And on the Alpha Male 2.0, there's also a toolkit you get where it shows how to structure relationships, how to set your location independent, all that stuff. So I give away a lot of free stuff. So calebjones.com and alphamale20.com.
Perfect. I will leave links in the description below to that. Guys, I really recommend you go and check out Caleb. Absolutely, like I said, changed my life, gave me permission to do a lot of the stuff. A lot of my content literally would not exist without Caleb. So once again, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you took action. It's great.
Thank you.